Well, good morning, King of Kings. It's great to be with you. We are in the middle of 21 days of prayer, and this year's focus is praying for life. Last week, we prayed for life eternal and reminded ourselves that there's a heaven and a hell coming. And so rather than living for sidelines, let's live for end zones. Today, we're going to be talking about living the full life now, and we'll pray for that at the end. And the next week, we're going to pray for the sanctity of life, especially for the unborn, as we are praying about life. So I want you to imagine you go to a movie theater and you buy a ticket and you see a movie, and the movie opens with a man lying on a bed and he's dreaming. And like movies can do, we get allowed to see inside his dream, and we see that inside his dream, the peak of his dream was a man that went into a dealership and bought a Ford F-150 pickup truck. And then he woke up. And he recognized and realized, I have no Ford F-150 pickup truck, but I really want one, and that is my dream. And so this man would go on his life, and he would work extra shifts at the plant. He would not do vacations with his family. He wouldn't show up for his kids' sporting events and activities. And all through the years, he would save up little by little. And so by the very end of the movie, he walks into a dealer and he purchases a brand new Ford F-150 pickup truck. And we get to see him driving out of the parking lot at the end, where he hits the button for the heated seats, and we get to see the 3 red dots appear, multiple amounts of heat coming at his butt and his back. He adjusts his Bluetooth settings, and then finally he tests the windshield wipers back and forth. And as the windshield wipers go back and forth, the movie ends and the credits roll. What would you think of that movie? Would you tell your friends, like, you've got to go see this movie? Would you get a cup of coffee and sit on your porch and ponder and reflect about this incredible movie that you saw? My hunch is that both of you, all of our campuses probably think that this is a pretty lame movie plot. And you would feel like you wasted a couple hours and probably $25 or $30 if it included some popcorn and drink as well. And you'd want that money back, because that was a waste of time and money. And yet I would argue that just like a plot of chasing after a Ford F-150 pickup truck is a lame movie, that I would argue the stories most of our lives are telling, or the movies that most of our lives are telling, are very much like the one I just described, where you are chasing after something of this world, whether it is a physical, tangible thing like a pickup truck or the house of your dreams, or you're chasing after someone, whether it's a spouse, or maybe the dream is to get a pet. I don't know what it might be. But you are living for something in this world and chasing after that, and think that when you get that, you will finally feel fulfilled. And yet the reality is, you get the pickup truck and you still want something more, and you're just as empty as ever. And you start asking questions about your life of, is there something more to all of this? And the answer is yes. And today I want to invite you into the great, full, abundant life that Jesus offers to each and every person under the sound of my voice right now. Our theme verse is John 10:10. It says, "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it 75% of the way to the fullest." Almost full. It's not what it says, does it? Come to give you life, and life to the full. Some translations use the word abundant. Today I want to talk about that abundant, full life that God offers to each and every one of you. And my challenge for you as you're listening today is to consider that if your life were a movie, what story would you be telling? And is it a story worth telling that others should come and, purchase a ticket to see how your life ends up? And so as I said, we're going to talk about abundant life today, and in the end we'll pray to receive this abundant life again this morning. In my sermon today, I want to give you 3 reasons why we don't live the full and abundant life, and all 3 of them have to do with settling. We settle. Settling in the Christian context is accepting something less than what is best, greatest, and ultimately most fulfilling. In the context of our life, settling often reflects a decision or a series of decisions, whether conscious or not, that leads us to live a life beneath what God wants for us. Now, what you need to remember about that theme verse we just read, yes, Jesus came to give you life and life abundantly to the full, all the way to the max. But what you need to know is there was a first part of that verse that says there is a thief, which is the enemy, which is Satan, and he comes only, it says, to steal and kill and destroy. And those 3 words are pretty strong, but the way the enemy comes at you is not with strength and kind of announcing, like, if I'm gonna steal, it's not like the enemy comes to you and says, hey, today at 4 o'clock, I'm coming to take everything. Instead, he comes subtly. He comes subtle, trying to get you to settle. This is what he did with Eve in the garden, and it's what he does with you and me today. The subtle settle. So as I open up 3 different stories in the Bible that describe people who have settled and missed out on God's best, the abundant full life, I want you to think about your own story and maybe ask, have I settled in this way? And full disclaimer, the 3 that I'm telling you that you might struggle with, I struggle with all of these. Here's the first settling. The first subtle settle is settling for good when God offers you great. This may be the overarching thing underneath it all, is that we settle for good instead of having great. I mean, even a couple of our campuses are here in Omaha, and I know Fremont's not far enough away to know that our city's slogan is what? The good life. So like, we celebrate and adopt that, the good life. But why would we settle for a good life when God wants to give us a great life? In the opening story, actually, there's nothing wrong with a Ford F-150 pickup. That's a good thing, especially heated seats in this miserable winter we're going through. That's good, really good. But I think all of us would watch that story and we'd think but yeah, he could have had great. He settled and he didn't spend time with his wife and his kids and he missed out on opportunities and he kind of just honestly lived for a really lame purpose. So he got a good thing, but he sacrificed great to get it. My favorite business book of all time is by Jim Collins, Good to Great. And he says this, good is the enemy of great. Some of you, that first line, you'll be thinking about that all week. Good is the enemy of great. And he goes on to say, and that's one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. We don't have great schools principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government principally because we have good government. Few people attain great lives in large part because it is just so easy to what? Settle for a good life. When I think of somebody that did this, I think of the biblical character Lot. We're introduced to him in Genesis. He was the nephew of Abraham. And in Genesis 13, we find out that Abraham and Lot were living on the same plot of land, and that land could no longer support both of them. And so Abraham generously let his nephew choose first. His kind of famous line is, I don't care where you go, but if you choose left, I'll go right. If you choose right, I'll go left. And it says this, Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. And so Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan, and he set out toward the east. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and sinning greatly against the Lord. In this choice, Lot looks out and he chooses what is pleasing to the eye. He chooses what is beautiful and what is comfortable in the moment, those lush, fertile plains. But what we see in the text is that he chose that lot of land right next to Sodom, where people were sinning greatly. Now it's likely, we don't know in the text, it's likely that Lot knew about the people of Sodom and the great sin and corruption that was happening there. And even if he did not know, if you're gonna make a big choice like this, he at least should have went and investigated and found out that I get that that area is really pretty, really comfortable, really nice, but lurking right next to it is a really bad, evil, corrupt area. And sometimes we choose in life what looks good and what is comfortable, even though what is bad is lurking right beside it. And in Lot's story, that would be the cause of his destruction. His home, his wealth, and his wife would all be sacrificed because he made a choice. Choosing what's comfortable, what looks pleasing to the eye. I think we do this, I do this quite often. In our world today, if there's two choices, I will naturally be inclined and pulled towards more and more comfort because comfort is easy. There's an author named Michael Easter, and he's a scientist. He's not religious, but he talks about just how comfortable he is and how comfortable our world is. And as I read his description of his life, I bet you can find yourself anchored in it too. Here's what he says about his life. I was comfortable, quite literally every single moment. I awoke in a soft bed in a temperature-controlled home. I commuted to work in a pickup with all the conveniences of a luxury sedan. I killed any semblance of boredom with my smartphone. I sat in an ergonomic desk chair, staring at a screen all day, working with my mind and not my body. And when I arrived home from work, I filled my face with no effort, highly caloric foods that came from Lord knows where. Then I plopped down on my overstuffed sofa to binge on television streamed down from the outer space. I rarely, if ever, felt the sensation of discomfort. The most physically uncomfortable thing I did, exercise, he says, was executed inside an air-conditioned building as I watched cable news channels that are increasingly bent on confirming my worldview rather than challenging it. I wouldn't run outside unless the conditions were, well, comfortable. Not too hot, not too cold, not too wet. And he goes on and on and on. Again, he's not religious, but his words resonate deeply, and he says there's a problem when we seek comfort to its fullest extent, that it doesn't create meaningful lives that tell good stories. Rather, it creates comfortable, easy lives. And nobody wants to watch a movie that has a comfortable, easy plot line. Comfort is good, but in our economy, commitment to God is great. Commitment to God is great. Commitment means cost. Commitment means you're going to do some hard things. We choose to do what is hard over what is easy or what might be comfortable. Hear me say today, a great life is not easy and it's not comfortable, but it is still great. And so some of you need to be reminded that God didn't come to give you a good life. Don't settle, even if you live in a city that has that as your slogan for a good life. When God offers you a great life, because good is often the enemy of great. The second subtle settle is we settle for more of the world when you can have all of Jesus. We hinted at this last week, but to go deeper, there's a biblical character that I bet you probably haven't heard about. There's a total of 3 verses about this guy, and they're spread in 3 different chapters, or 3 different books, I should say, in the New Testament about a guy named Demas. And Demas was a man that was working with Paul and for the benefit of the church. And 2 of the 3 verses tell us that in 2 different places. Yet the end of his story, the 3rd chapter, the 3rd verse that we read about him is super sad. It's from 2 Timothy 4, verse 10. It's where Paul is urging Timothy, saying, hey, Timothy, do your best to come to me quickly. Why? For Demas, because he loved this world. The Greek implies the now age. He loved now. He loved everything he can get now. He loved what this world could offer. Has deserted me and has gone to Thessalonica. And that's all we know about his story. A pretty lame movie plot. Don't be a Demas. Don't settle for more of the world when you can have all of Jesus. Because here's the reality. You can get all of this world and still find yourself as empty as ever. And where I see this played out more in our context today, probably than any other place, is in our pursuit of a good thing called the American dream. It is not bad, it is good. I love so much of what it promotes. Equal opportunity and success through hard work, determination, initiative. It promotes upward mobility, prosperity, recognition, all things that are good. God is for those things. God is for equality. God is for prosperity. God is for hard work that requires initiative and determination. None of those things are bad. They're all good. But friends, here's the truth. If anything good ever becomes first in your life, we need to preach on how that good thing is now dangerous. And a lot of you have flipped from following a good thing that has become your first thing, and now it is dangerous. And we've seen and heard this movie and this story played out all the time, and we still fall for the lie of the American dream, chasing it at all you can to accomplish everything you can so that you can get to the place where you've accomplished it. But there have been many more that have accomplished it and have found themselves to be empty and still chasing after more after getting it. It's why you have rich people that are empty inside. It's why you have famous people that don't feel known, people with big homes that are ridiculously stressed, people who are married that are as lonely as ever, people that are successful that feel like failures, people that are accomplished who feel insignificant, people who are intellectual that feel lost, people who are attractive that feel unloved because you're chasing after something as your ultimate pursuit and trying to get something from it that you will never find outside of God. It's not like we need more people to tell us this. Jesus said these words in Mark 8:36. What good is it for you to gain the whole world, yet forfeit your soul? And we have to be careful because the American dream is good. I think the trap that we fall into as American Christians is we try to chase and pursue the American dream and also tack Jesus into that. And when you're living for these two things, one which is good and one which is great, but you don't have the great one as your first priority, let me tell you what will happen. You will inevitably be pulled towards the good because that's where the world is living. That's where the world is pulling you for. And at some point, they're both, one's good, one's great. But at some point, this good thing does come diametrically opposed to the great thing. Because the good thing, it has more and more and more attached to it. More recognition, more prosperity, more stuff, more wealth, more recognition, more success, more whatever. And the great thing, which is following after Jesus, has at the end of it, you get to receive a gift by somebody else's hard work and determination and initiative, free gift of grace that now so compels you that you want to follow after him. And by following after him, it's actually a constant pursuit where you deny yourself every day of something of this world. And so I'm just saying they're going to become diametrically opposed to one another at some point. And if you don't choose the great one, you will choose the good one because it always feels good to gain and it does not feel good to deny. Demas went towards more of this world and lived out a pretty lame life. I love what David Platt says in his book, Radical. He says, radical obedience to Christ is not easy. It's not comfort. What we just talked about, it's not health, not wealth, and not prosperity in this world. Radical obedience to Christ risks losing all these things. But in the end, such risk finds its reward in Christ. And he is more than enough for us. He says, my biggest fear even now is that I will hear Jesus' words and walk away content to what? Settle for less than radical obedience to him. Radical obedience and following Jesus is the great life, and it will not always cause you to be prosperous and to have material things and to have recognition and success. You might have those things, and if you have those, good for you. But what I can tell you is following Jesus, here's what it'll do. It'll give you a hope that is unshakable. It'll give you a joy that is unspeakable. You'll be filled with a love that's undeniable. You'll have a faith that's unmovable, and you will have purpose and significance for every day of your life. And that's the reward. That's what so many are actually longing for, thinking they'll get in the good thing, but is only found in the great thing. More of the world will leave you as empty as ever, but more of Jesus will fill you completely with what you need. And the third way in which we settle, the subtle settle, is we settle for immediate gratification when you could have had long-term purpose. Now, Lot and Demas had this in their story as well, but when I think of the most egregious act of settling for something now and giving up something later, my mind goes to a character in Genesis named Esau. Some of you might know that story well. The story is found in Genesis 25. Esau and Jacob were brothers. Esau was the firstborn son of Isaac, and in Jewish culture, the firstborn son received a double portion of the inheritance and got to carry on the father's legacy to the next generations. And yet in this story, Esau is really hungry and he's famished, and he gets taken advantage of by his brother Jacob, who has some stew hot on the stove ready to give to his bro. And Esau gives all of this up, his birthright, his inheritance, the legacy, for a bowl of lentil stew. Here's what it says. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished, and said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." Jacob, the conniving, deceiving little brother, this just a really bad guy in a lot of biblical stories, takes advantage of, first, sell me your birthright. Esau says, "Look, man, I'm about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" He exaggerated his hunger. He dismissed the immense value of his identity and his long-term purpose. And he settled for a bowl of stew that offered temporary relief and instant gratification. It's one of the stupidest decisions. I hear some groans here at I Street that anyone has ever made. And here's the consequences. This is the reward when you choose immediate gratification. This verse sums it up well. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. He settled for 10 minutes of lentil decadence and sacrificed decades of his future. And you might think he is stupid, of course, for doing that, and you would never settle for a bowl of stew. This one honestly wouldn't tempt me. Vegetable stew is highly overrated, and I think lentils are terrible. So that's not gonna get me. But other things will get me, and other things will get you. And we live in a world, unlike Esau's day, where immediate gratification is at our fingertips like it's never been before. And I don't think a lot of times we choose the immediate gratification out of ill intent or lack of ambition. I think we choose it because we've lost sight of the overall purpose for why we exist, and we're just more aimlessly making decisions to get us through today to feel good so we can get through tomorrow, when a lot of those decisions may seem small at the time, but they compound, and pretty soon we're very far off from where God has wanted and desired us for always to be. Does that make sense? If not, let me tell you a story that I love sharing. I've shared it probably many times before. I write about it in my book, Red Letter Challenge. And the reason I love it is because it tells us how important it is to aim. You need to know where you're aiming. And so if you need to know where you're aiming, you need to know your overall purpose. It's about a rifle sharpshooter named Matthew Emmons. Some historians say he's the greatest sharpshooter, even still today, to ever live. So in the 2004 Athens Olympics, the question wasn't who's going to win the gold in this rifle contest. Everybody knew Matthew Emmons has got the gold. We're just fighting for silver and bronze. Rifle marksmen are trained to fire between heartbeats. And so a lot of times they try to slow their breathing because they want to fire in between those beats per minute, because if they're a millisecond off, it can make a difference by a millimeter, and that can be the difference between a gold or silver. And so this particular event was 10 shots. And he was so far ahead of the field after the first 9 that technically speaking, all he needed to do was get a 7.2 To give you perspective, on his first 9 shots, he'd never had lower than a 9.3. And so he's got his breathing, his focus in line. He's getting lined up for his next shot. He's getting ready to fire his 10th and final shot. And then he fires the shot, and what do you think happens? Bullseye. What'd you expect? I told you he's the greatest shooter ever to live. I don't know what you were thinking it would be. It is a trick, though, because he did hit the bullseye, but he was so focused on his breathing that he forgot to aim in the right place, and he ended up aiming one place to the left. It's called a crossfire. And he noticed this, and his face gasped because he realized what he did. It's like, if you don't know what a crossfire is, it's like you go bowling and somehow, for whatever reason, the ball sticks to your fingers and it like flies over your lane into the next lane and hits the 10 pins over in the lane next to you on the left or the right. And like, that's really impressive. It's also 0, right? He got a score of 0 and went from 1st to 8th just like that. And the reason I like bringing this up is because this is literally the greatest shooter in the history of the world, teaching us that if you don't know where you're aiming, you're going to hit the wrong target every time. And again, I don't think we're choosing immediate gratification many times out of ill intent or lack of ambition. I think we just lost sight of our purpose in this world, that we were made for him and by him for his glory and to be the greatest disciple of Jesus we can possibly be. And when we forget that, we end up making a decision here and a decision there that feels good in the moment and gets me through the day to get me to the next day. But over time, it leads to disastrous results, and it ends up being why individually and collectively we are a shadow at best representation of the one that came to give us life. Because we've settled for immediate gratification. And I get it that lentils and veggie stew may not be tempting you, but you've got immediate gratification at your fingertips today more than you ever have before. And we do this. Some of us, we do this. It's just one swipe or a tap of the credit card to pay for something that you don't have the money to pay for, that you want right now, so you can keep up with everybody else, even though it's going to cost you more later. Or maybe it's in a period of boredom or lonely or angriness that you're at a computer and you could type one website, but you type another website and you know that's a bad decision, but it's going to give you something instantly, immediately gratifying. Or maybe you're having a really difficult time at your home right now, whether that's because of your spouse or your kids who are growing up and are driving you crazy. And so you could take a right turn and get to your home and be the husband and father that your family needs to be, or you can take a left turn into whatever danger creeps over there, whatever that might be, whether that's into the hands of somebody else that's affirming you and appreciating you and giving you what you most desire, or maybe it's just to sink yourself more into workaholism so you can avoid being at home. Instant gratification is at our fingertips, robbing us of our long-term purpose. And if you think about it, anytime, like Esau, you settle for a temporary fix and you forfeit your purpose, that is the definition of what sin is and does to you. It is missing the mark. It will give you a temporary fix, and you will feel empty afterwards. You would not sin if it did not feel good. It gives you some sort of temporary satisfaction or pleasure. And honestly, if your sin doesn't do that, like, you are sinning wrongly. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but like, if you ain't getting a minute or a second out of it that's good, like, I don't know what's wrong. That's what sin, it lures you in. It promises you immediate gratification. It gives it to you, and then it leaves you alone to fend for yourselves. And all the meanwhile, you've settled and you've lost your purpose. Romans 3:23 tells us all about this settle that we all do. All of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And this is the subtle settle that every single one of us participates in. The great news, not the good news, the great news is that Jesus never settled. When he was in heaven and things looked so good, but you and I weren't there, he didn't settle for good, but he went for great because he wants you there. When he started his ministry, he went 40 days in the wilderness, and Satan was there to steal, kill, and destroy, and said, I'll give you everything of this world right now if you bow down and worship me. And he didn't settle and chase more of this world, even though he could have the greatest kingdom that anyone has ever seen now. And when they threw him on the cross, and he could have had what I would think incredible immediate gratification of getting down off the cross and destroying all the punks, the jerks, the liars, the spitters, the mockers, and he stayed. He never gave up his purpose. Because unlike Esau, he knew Romans 8:29 that he was the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And that by him not settling, all of us who have settled can be welcomed back into a great life. Not by gritting our teeth together, hard work and determination, not by being wealthy or prosperous or choosing comfortable things, but rather by letting go of all of those good things and saying, God, you're the great thing that I want. You're the great thing that I need. You're the only great one to live for. And when we who have settled for good things receive the great grace of God, we are welcomed right back into a great life as if we never lost it. He restored that back to us when he rose from the dead. And John 1:12 says it again, that all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Your identity is still intact when you receive the grace of God, no matter what you've done, no matter how you've settled. The grace of God is big enough, wide enough, strong enough, long enough, deep enough to cover any settling that you've ever done. How great is our God? Now here's the thing about Lot, Demas, and Esau. All of them had the great life, and they all got it stolen from them. Because there's an adversary who subtly steals. And when he steals, he'll kill you because he wants to destroy you. And too many of you have been settling for good. And you're wondering why life still feels empty. Because for whatever reason, a good life, the good life is still filled with a lot of people who are anxious, depressed, stressed, lonely, high-strung, and feel purposeless. I don't even know how good that is, if I'm real with you. But God offers a new opportunity for his grace today to step back into a great life. And if at all you feel like I've been settling and this message is hitting home with me, let me give you more great news. I really, honestly, genuinely believe you're going to love being a part of King of Kings this first quarter of this year. We're going to continue to pray, focus on the importance of life to ground ourselves this month. And then in February, we're starting a sermon series all about how to help you discover your purpose and live that out so you don't make stupid decisions that just pull towards instant gratification, but you remember why you're here. And then in March, we're going to have a whole series anchored in the Sermon on the Mount to try to help you be the greatest disciple you can possibly be. And I really believe that if you commit to coming and putting into practice what we're going to be teaching you through the Bible, 2025 won't be a good year. It'll be a great year. But it all starts with acknowledging how we've settled and receiving what God wants to give us. And so at all campuses now, I want to pray for you, and I want to have a confessional prayer moment with all of us. And so I want to ask you to do something courageous, though. If today's message hit home with you and you realize I've been settling, I've been living for a Ford F-150, my life story and plot's pretty lame, whatever it might be, chosen instant gratification, and you want to bring all of that garbage to God, he welcomes you right now. And I want to ask you, if you have been settling at all of our campuses, would you get into a posture of confession which means will you kneel before the Lord? If you've settled it all, and by the way, I'm kneeling not as to show you what to do, but I need this. And if you can't kneel, would you do me a favor and raise your hand? You've settled and you've recognized, I don't want good, I want great. God offers me great. With people kneeling, with hands raised. And honestly, I know there's a lot of others who aren't kneeling, who don't have hands raised, that the Spirit's speaking to you and you are that person that needs to confess. I want to just ask you to repeat this prayer with me. Say, Dear Jesus, I confess that I've settled. I've chosen comfort. I've chased things of this world. I've chosen quick fixes. I'm sorry for settling. Thank you that you did not settle. Through your death and resurrection, I receive your forgiveness. I receive your grace. And I will follow you purposefully for all my days. God, we thank you for who you are and for what you have done. May we be a church that does not settle. You're worth it, God. We love you so much. It's in your name we pray, and together all campuses say, amen.